Hey, what's up? It's a Figure Hunter, and up tonight is a short-ish video. I always say short and is never quite short because I really like getting into the analytics things. For the Suunto Peak 9 initial thoughts, comparison to the regular Suunto 9, and heart rate analysis review. The other thing I want to mention before I get into the review or the overviews is how I actually got this watch for testing. So I couldn't get a test unit. I couldn't get like my Suunto or like, their marketing brand coordinator to send me a test unit. And one of the actual subscribers on the channel, Jason Davis, actually said he would love for me to have the chance to review it, and he wasn't actually using it actively right now. So he sent it to me, just, asked for my address, sent it to me to fully test and review the device, and then I'll just send it back to him when I'm done. That is fantastic. I am absolutely blown away that a subscriber would do that. So thank you, Jason Davis. It is making all this possible, and I hope to serve you well with the review results. So if you like it, give it a thumbs up. Please consider subscribing for more. I've got a ton of new things coming out. So I have set the Vertex 2 is going to be on its way in the next couple days, and I have not on this wrist, the Garmin Fenix 6X Titanium Solar to do a head-to-head comparison as well as a full in-depth comparison or review of the Vertex 2. I've got the Suunto 9 Peak full review coming out. I'm going to do probably like a review of inexpensive knee sleeves versus expensive knee sleeves. And I am actually wearing an Apple Watch. It is like the bane of my existence. I dislike it for so many reasons, but the 5K runner turned me on or connected me with a guy named Marcus who helps drive a Facebook group called Wearables for Human Tuning and Analysis or something like that. And he turned me on to an app that actually takes the accuracy of the heart rate sensor and the blood oxygen sensor and ties it into exertion recovery and sleep tracking like Whoop. So the biggest complaint I had about the Apple Watch was that it really never combined everything you kind of needed for training tracking into one app, and I am going to test it over the next couple of weeks or maybe even 30 days because I'm pretty fired up about it. So tonight we're going to do three things. We're going to look at a comparison of the Suunto 9 Peak versus the Suunto 9 Regular when it just comes to the basic breakdown of specs. We're going to look at the watch and we're going to break down the initial likes and dislikes along with looking at the watch, and then we're going to do a heart rate analysis accuracy review. So with that, let's dive in. Okay, so comparing it to the actual Suunto 9, Suunto 9 Barra, whatever, the titanium, they do have a couple of different variants now. You said, the model originally had some beveled edges to it, and now they have a smooth circular model. So we're going to sort of talk in general compared to a straight Suunto 9, Barra black, the stainless steel versus the stainless steel, because it is crazy how significantly different this is. And we're going to look at it. We're not going to, because I don't have the Suunto 9 activated because I just got done with the major training load review, and I have it poised to be shipped back out. But think about the significance, because I'm going to tell you the Suunto 9 Peak is basically all of the feature set. So hear that. The Suunto 9 Peak is all of the feature set of the Suunto 9 Barra with a couple of additional aspects that maybe aren't worth that much, but all of the feature set. And it's 24% lighter, and then get this, it's 54% smaller. So you get all of the specs. And it's half of the size. Now maybe the screen size is going to be like 20% smaller as well, but it's 24% lighter. It goes from 81 grams to 62 grams, and it's 54% smaller. That is crazy. Plus it has some auto brightness adjustments. It's got updates over Wi-Fi, so that's a big deal, or just over the air. It's got blood oxygen, and we're going to talk about that because that is a crapshoot. It is not good. And it's $70 more expensive. So Okay, you're paying 70 bucks extra, but you're cutting out 24% of the weight and 54% of the size. So that is pretty crazy. We're gonna look at it for a millisecond, side by side versus just the overall body of a traditional Suunto 9. And then we're gonna talk about the likes and dislikes as we go through the watch itself. So let's dive in before we come to the heart rate accuracy review. Okay, so there's the Suunto 9. And then look at that little guy. I mean, so much more slender. So much more slender. And if you look at it sort of side by side, if you were to really to track it, I mean, you got like Chunkamonka versus like little svelte, like really, really different. Obviously, you know, I didn't measure the thickness. I'm not gonna like bother with it, but it's 50 millimeters versus 43 millimeters. If you want a bigger watch, sure, you might have a desire to, you know, go with a huge watch comparatively, but you just look at the size difference, the overall sort of look and appearance of it. And we're going to talk about the specifics of this in a second. So, but you just sort of see the overall comparison. It is a lot different. So I just want to show that for 1 second. So looking at a bunch of the different things. So you can see, I mean, you can't maybe see as much. It has this feature where you can turn the backlight on all the time. And, you know, when you, otherwise, you actually will get full backlight based on whatever you're setting, low, medium, high, when you push one of the buttons. And then otherwise, it's going to do an adjustable backlight based on ambient when you do a wrist raise. But when you see the colorization just in general, you know, I feel like it's got a solid backlight quality to it. So you can compare it to some of the others. So this is it compared to the Phoenix 6 at 60%. You can compare it to a super dim. We'll actually look at it under a black. That's actually got the backlight on. You can't quite see it. And then the Ever Dark wrist raise version, it's actually got the backlight on in the Polar Vantage V2. That's the brightness of the wrist raise backlight. It's insane. But let's take a look at how it is when you have it off, because I do like that I can just leave this backlight on for this purpose of this review. So there it is compared to a 60% brightness on the Phoenix 6, and the Phoenix 6 has solid brightness to it. It is actually a very solidly bright. So this high res, and that's where I'm going to talk about my battery life in a second. The high brightness is actually, so it's, in my eyes, it is brighter for sure than this, and it actually has a little bit richer colors. And there it is compared to a more dim light. So the dim light actually makes the very dim backlight on the wrist raise stand out on the Polar Vantage V2. You can obviously push this little button and you'll get a brighter backlight. But when I compared like the blacks and the colorization, I think this is actually a pretty good screen display. So I am actually loving that. When you look at the build quality, I mean, the thing is just built beautifully. You know, even look at the little quick release. It's just sharp. It's like not like little rinky dink. And, you know, like the feel of it, and everybody loves this. I mean, it's got the best button clicks you could ever have. They are really recessed, which I don't love, but it keeps this sort of clean, minimalistic look to the outside. And the band is super high quality. But one of the things that I really think is awesome is this band clasp. So you don't have those loops, which I can't stand loops because I'm always having a hard time getting a rubber band through the loops. And well, you know me, I'm changing watches all the time. But it's spot on. And then I'm not going to bother to try to forcibly get it to activate a beep, but the beeps on it are subtle. They're nice. They really are kind of spot on. The swipe and the screen functions really well. Everything moves really smoothly. See, I'm at 35%. I'll give you the full battery life estimate so far. You get all the same major functions as you do on the Barrow 9. So the body battery, resources, steps and calories for the day, your training, that's just your overall training time, and you can get some other stats. That's recovery time since the last workout. altitude as well as sleep details, and you can track your sleep over a period of days. So it does all the same things that the Barrow 9 does, like we just talked about. So what are the problems? Well, you know, if you don't have this backlight like permanently on, which would burn your battery to the ground, if you're using a wrist raise for the ambient backlight, it's not going to register how high you've set just the straight up backlight. You actually have to push a button to get the backlight to come on in full. And so if your ambient light is a little bit dull, you have to push a button to get it to be fully bright, but that also protects the screen from actually activating things. You can see kind of the pixels in there, no big deal. The watch face is a little bit smaller, so you have to get used to that, especially if you're coming from a 9, which feels like a much big. And then one of the nights I had sleep, the sleep was off when it started the sleep, and it actually couldn't be adjusted. I could not adjust anything. And then the last thing that I think is, so no sleep adjustments. That's actually kind of a big deal because you want that to be accurate. The last thing is this. This is the pulse ox, 76%. So I obviously need to go to the hospital right away. So the last reading was 22 hours ago. Every time I try to take a manual reading, it doesn't function for some reason. And the last actual reading I had before the 76%, which would show me to be dead, was like 83%. Totally off. Not working at all. So let's talk about some of these general likes. Okay, so again, in summary, backlight. I really do like the backlight. I like the colorization. I have super sensitive eyes to backlight. I really cannot use polar watches, or at least the Vantage V2, because the backlight is so dim. So I do like the backlight. It does have a solid brightness to it. I love the clicky buttons. They're fantastic. I love actually the beeps. The beeps are just these nice little beeps that come up. I actually left them on, and every other watch I've ever tested, I turned the beeps off. I love the size. I love the design. It is sort of like stylish and sleek. This is a great watch. I love the band that it clasps onto itself. That's fantastic. I hate running bands through a little whoop-de-loop. Now, I'm changing I'm changing watches all the time, so whatever. And the battery, in 93 hours, I burned it down to 40%. So 60% burn in 93 hours, it equates to 6.5 days, which is about the same as a Phoenix 6 Solar on 60% brightness. So that's pretty great. All the notifications have come through great. So all those are positive likes. And what do I dislike? The fact that, it does lock the screen. So if you're taking a shower, you're not going to create anything. So even if you do a wrist raise, you cannot get the screen to change anything. You actually have to push a button. But the buttons are sort of recessed on the lower side, so you have to push a button in order to start activating anything that you might want to see, as well as the full backlight. I don't like that it's got the ambient adjustment. In my opinion, if I do a wrist raise, give me what I want to have. Don't adjust it for me, but it will track the ambient light to adjust the wrist raise backlight in all conditions, and it is more power conservative, so it is actually smart. But in some ways I just think, well, if it gives me a dim light, then I want to be able to have adjustments. You can kind of see the pixels. It is a smaller watch face, but it's not terrible because the watch faces with Suunto and Polar, they're relatively simple, and that's all you really need them for. And one of the major things was the sleep adjustment. I had a night where it actually tracked me falling asleep 2 hours before because it was just getting to know me, but there's no adjustments. You can't say, no, I didn't go to bed at 10 o'clock, I went to bed at midnight. You can't tell it that, and it's just got like 2 hours of awake time, but it can't adjust the sleep. And then last but not least, the first major dislike, and it is a big one, the pulse ox, the blood oxygen tracking is worthless. Worthless. It won't take a reading. I could sit still multiple times. It will track readings sporadically. Like my last reading obviously was a long time ago and it was 76%, so I should have raced to the hospital. The previous reading before that was 83%, so I should have sat down and cooled it. But no readings in any medical grade or any of the other watches ever get in the 80s, so it is not functional. And with that, let's talk about heart rate accuracy for doing a CrossFit workout when just wearing it on the wrist. I basically have taken it on 2 CrossFit workouts and 1 casual run. On the casual run, did fine. Relatively close. I just did steady state running. It was a recovery run. Fine. On the CrossFit workout, not accurate at all. I am actually not going to run full accuracy testing on it to see analytically how off it is, if it's 40% accurate, therefore missing 60%, because it just missed the workout. And now that I got my training load up and running on the Suunto app with training peaks, I just want to keep it running accurately, and it'll connect to a chest strap excellently. So I don't want to test it anymore. It is not accurate. So let's dive in and look at a couple things real quick. I'll look at a couple workouts and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so this is the workout for today. It was just a bunch of bench presses in the beginning, and you actually built up to a 1 rep max, and then you did like five sets of 3 reps. And then the end was actually 4 rounds of 400 meter rows, 80 double unders, and 12 hanging dumbbell squat cleans. And so it had some intensity to it. It was an 18-minute time cap. I finished in 17 minutes and 30 seconds. So it was a longer, more intense, but it did have some peak heart rate zones. I might have peaked out at the hang cleans because I did those unbroken. So here's what it looked like on the Garmin with a chest strap, and then you compare it to the Suunto 9 Peak, just the optical heart rate sensor on the wrist. So if you look, you got 121 average versus 111. That might not seem like much, but you see that in the intense times, it is just falling off a cliff. So you just, you're basically coming down, each of those little crests off of the peaks is coming down to below 125 beats per minute. And then one of them, actually towards the end of the workout, when my heart rate wasn't declining and resting very much, came down even more significantly. And then actually I did a 1,000-meter row at the end just for sort of like a relaxing row. That's what that last little hump is, and that's what that last little hump is here. So it just is not tracking the intensity zones, and my rating on this, my difficulty score, my training stress score, as well as my EPOC, was low relative to what it should have been. And then the other more disappointing workout was this one from Saturday, because what it included was a lot of thrusters and pull-ups coupled with bikes. So it was like 3 rounds of 12 thrusters, 12 pull-ups, and then an 800-meter or 1,200-meter bike, and then 3 rounds of 9 thrusters, 9 pull-ups, 1,200-meter bike, and then 3 rounds of 6. So it was just intense, and it was relatively long. And if you compare, like, this is a chest strap average heart rate of 139 beats per minute, and it was just not accurate. So again, you see just like stayed up. I mean, if you look at that line, the 139 average line, it's like I'm sitting over 150 beats a minute for the majority of the workout there. Obviously, like the lifting in the beginning, it didn't pick up some of the lifting we were doing in full, but it just didn't get the intensity of the workout. It actually missed on significant amounts in the middle there. And this was a very difficult workout where I really had a lot of high strain, and so it is not at all going to accurately flow into an accurate training load, which is not going to tell you recovery times, not going to tell you your fatigue level. It's not going to use any of the basic functionality. So not to be trusted when doing a CrossFit workout. You absolutely have to wear a chest strap. These are not good results, and I'm not going to test it further for here. So let's come back together for a summary. Okay, so that's it for the initial thoughts and summary. This is a little bit longer, as I said it was going to be short, but I wanted to give you some meat when you compare it to a Suunto 9 regular and all of the the pros and the cons. I will say I am really actually liking it because it has all the primary beef to it. The body battery tracking, a first speed analytic, which they call resources, is actually worthwhile. The sleep tracking is reasonable. And then the workout analytics with training peaks and the training load is all quality stuff, but you're getting all of this quality on a sleek, stylish watch. The previous Suunto 9 was a huge chunkamunka. It was. And it's not even like this is going to go 3 days and the Suunto 9 went 15 days. They're both rated at 14 days, but with the backlight jacked up all the way, I was getting the same exact battery life, and I'm targeting 6.5 days with the way it is now. So this is a good watch so far, but you absolutely have to connect it to a chest strap. So let that be said. Have to connect chest strap. The heart rate accuracy is not good. And with that, that's the initial review, the comparison to the Suunto 9 regular, and the heart rate accuracy review. Fit Gear Hunter, thanks so much for watching.